Think about this for a second. A single, short chapter, only 7 verses long, that gets recited multiple times a day, every single day, by more than 1 billion people around the globe. And we're not talking about just any chapter. This is the very first one in the Quran. It's called Al-Fatiha, or the opening. And when I say it's recited daily, I really mean it. It's the absolute foundation of Islamic prayer. It's a non-negotiable part of every single one of the 5 daily prayers, what's known as Salah. So its repetition isn't just some ritual. It's this constant, foundational connection. The real question is why? Why is this one short chapter so incredibly central? Well, the name itself, Al-Fatiha, gives us a pretty big clue. It literally means the opening, or the key. It's the opener to the Quran, sure, but it's also the opening to daily prayer, and, as we're about to see, many believe it's the key to understanding the entire message of the scripture. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at how Al-Fatiha is really structured like a personal conversation with God. Then we'll get into the 2 distinct halves of that dialogue, the praise part and the plea part. And finally, we'll explore its role that goes way beyond just prayer, as a source of spiritual healing. Okay, so the first and honestly the most critical thing to grasp about Al-Fatiha is that it isn't a monologue. It's framed as a direct, one-on-one dialogue between the person who is praying and God himself. And this isn't just an interpretation. Islamic tradition says this explicitly. It's right there in the Hadith, which, are the collected sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, that this chapter is understood to be split perfectly in 2. The first half is for God, and the second half is for the believer who's making the prayer. And this structure is just brilliant. You've got the first part where the believer acknowledges and praises God's majesty and mercy. Then, once that stage is set, the whole thing pivots. It becomes the believer's turn to speak, to declare their worship, and then make one really profound request. So let's dive into that first half. Before a person asks for anything, the dialogue kicks off by establishing exactly who is being spoken to. It starts by invoking God's name and his 2 most fundamental attributes, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Right after that, it's all praise is for God, Lord of all universes. So right away, you're establishing both his incredible kindness and his absolute authority over, well, everything. And what's so fascinating here is the balance. The prayer, again, emphasizes the most compassionate, most merciful, really hammering home that mercy is the primary attribute. It's only after that double dose of mercy that you get this awe-inspiring idea of God as the master of the day of judgment. So you've got these 2 huge concepts, boundless mercy and ultimate justice, held in perfect tension. Now, let's jump to the second half. With all that praise complete, the conversation makes a hard pivot. The believer, having acknowledged who God is, now gets to speak from their own heart. This verse right here, this is the turning point of the entire chapter. It is a direct, exclusive declaration. Thee alone we worship, and thee alone we ask for help. It's an affirmation of total, singular reliance on God, and that sets the stage for the big request that's about to come. So after all of that, after setting the stage with praise and declaring total submission, what's the one thing the believer asks for? It's not money, not health, not power. It is simply this: guide us along the straight path. That is the absolute core plea of Al-Fatiha. And the straight path, or as-Sirat al-Mustaqim, is such a profound concept. It's not just about a physical road. It implies a way of living that is direct, true, one that avoids extremes. It's the ultimate goal. But, what does that path actually look like? The final verse clarifies it. So the verse defines the straight path in 2 ways, by telling us what it is and what it is not. It is the path of those God has blessed, and it is not the path of those who have earned God's anger, nor is it the path of those who have just wandered off and gotten lost. Now, as our source material points out, there are different scholarly views on what these last 2 groups represent. Some classical commentators have historically linked those who have evoked anger with Jewish traditions and those who are astray with Christian ones. But it's really important to note that many other commentators, both in the past and today, see these categories way more universally. For them, it refers to anyone who knowingly rejects God's guidance, compared to those who just lose their way through carelessness or ignorance. But this chapter's importance goes so far beyond just the text itself, and you can really see that in all the different names it's been given in Islamic tradition. Each one of them highlights a different facet of what makes it so special. For instance, it's called al-Hamd, the praise, for obvious reasons. It's called al-Kitab, which means the mother of the book, because it's seen as a kind of summary of the entire Quran in just 7 verses. And then there's this one, Ash-Shifa, which means the cure. And that name, Ash-Shifa, points to a really deep-seated belief about al-Fatiha. It's not just for formal prayer. Traditionally, it's recited as a source of healing for both spiritual and even mental distress, a direct appeal for a divine remedy. This sacred status is just so powerfully captured in a Hadith, where the angel Gabriel announces al-Fatiha as a divine light, a kind of gift that no prophet before Muhammad was ever given. It's presented as this unique offering, with a promise that there's a reward for every single word that's recited. So when you put it all together, al-Fatiha is a prayer, it's a dialogue, it's a summary of faith, and it's a spiritual cure, all packed into one. Which really brings us to the final question to think about. As the opening, recited every single day, what does this daily dialogue ultimately unlock for the believer?